Let us pray. Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests were committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Some papers to be laid by the leader of the majority party. Leader or somebody to depute for him being absent, they get the chairman of the Transport, Public Works and Housing Committee.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 19, 2019. Road Maintenance Levy Fund, RMLF in bracket, allocation for each constituency by Kenya Rural Roads Authority, KERA, for the financial year 2019-2020. Honorable Speaker, it translates to 31,100,000 per constituency, which of course is 21 million from 22% and 9,500,000 from the 10%. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Next paper by the Chairman, Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Honorable Mele.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 19th, 2019. Report of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on its consideration of 1, the Higher Education Loans Board Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 9 of 2019, and 2, the Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Chairman, Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources, Honorable Kareke Mbiuki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 19, 2019. Report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on 1, budget implementation review for the following ministries and departments for the first half of the year 2018-2019 financial year. Minister of Water and Sanitation, Minister of Environment and Forestry, State Department of Mining, and State Department of Wildlife. 2, the inquiry into the death of 11 black rhinos after the translocation to the Savo East National Park Sanctuary. 3, the inquiry into the encroachment into the riparian areas in Kenya. And finally, the climate change conference in Katowice, Poland from 8 to 14 December 2018. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 19, 2019. 1, legal notice number 110 of 2019 relating to the Kenya Export Promotion and Branding Agency order and the explanatory memoranda from the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Cooperatives. 2, the report of the National Government Budget Implementation Review report for the financial year 2018-2019 from the Office of the Controller of Budget. 3, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statement in respect of Cabernet Hotel Limited for the year that ended 30th June 2016 and the certificate therein. Number 4, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2018 and the certificate therein. Northeastern National Polytechnic, Lake Victoria Northern Water Service Board, National Council for Population and Development. And 5, the report of the Auditor General in respect and financial statement in respect of the following constituencies for the year that ended 30th June 2018 and certificate therein. Wajir South, Lugari, Kinangop, Rongai, Oljororok, Baringo North, Olkalau, and Narok West. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before we move to the next order, allow me to recognize pupils and students from the following institutions. In the Speaker's Gallery, Joy Shiners Primary School, Narok East Constituency, Narok County. And Komodhai Boys Secondary School, Githunguri Constituency, Kiambu County. And in the public gallery, those from Wee Primary School, Kitui Central, Kitui County. Gitongu Secondary School, Mathioya Constituency, Murang'a County. Dr. Kraft Primary School, Makandara Constituency, Nairobi County. You are all welcome to observe the proceedings of the National Assembly this afternoon. Move to the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Kareke Mbiuki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notices of the following 2 motions. 1, that the House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on its inquiry into the death of 11 black rhinos after the translocation to Savo East National Park Sanctuary, laid on the table of the House today, Thursday, September 19, 2019. And 2, that this House adopt the report of the Departmental Committee on the Environment and Natural Resources on its inquiry into the encroachment of riparian areas in Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, September 19, 2019. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
First question by the member for Tharaka Nithi County, Beatrice Ngatha. Honorable Beatrice Ngatha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but I'm trying to open the machine. Where is it?
You came so long ago. It does not require a screwdriver. Maybe as you are taken through the motions, let me get the question by the member for Igembe South, Honorable John Paul Mwirigi. You also want some screwdriver?
I have, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to ask the question number 394 of 2019 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. following the presidential directive of that August 2017, when Igembe campus, a constituent college of Chuka University, elevated to a university and granted a charter. What measures is the ministry putting in place to ensure that Saint campus is elevated and granted a charter without further delay? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Brought to be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Now we can go to the member for Tharaka Nithi. You can use a hard copy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is for 2019-385. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the following question. Could the ministry consider giving birth certificates to newborn babies immediately upon discharge from hospitals? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, the question will be responded to before the Committee on Administration and National Security. To the next question by the member for Homa Bay County, Honorable Gladys Wanga Nyasuna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 406 of 2019, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Youth and Gender Affairs. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the list of schools per constituency that have benefited from the allocation of sanitary towels during the financial years 2017, 2018, and 2018-2019? The second question, which I would like to rephrase, and I hope this will be noted by the clerks at table, because the way it's phrased doesn't bring out what the question is. Could the Cabinet Secretary confirm whether sanitary towels were purchased and distributed to schools with the allocation of 463 million for the financial year 2018-2019? And the reason that has to be rephrased is because we highly suspect that there were no sanitary towels purchased in that financial year. Number 3, what steps has the ministry taken to ensure that the quality of sanitary towels is safeguarded and approved for use by the relevant agencies? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, the question will be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. Last question by the member for Busia County, Honorable Florence Mutua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise on question 407 of 2019 directed to the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and Coordination of National Government. What steps has the ministry taken to ensure that key priorities of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030, as adopted by the 3rd United Nations World Conference in Sendai, Japan, in March 2015, are inculcated in sector plans to enhance risk reduction in view of the current upsurge of cancer cases and food contamination? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question will be responded to before the Committee on Administration and National Security. I see an intervention by Wanga Nyasuna. Everybody who had put an intervention has withdrawn. Honorable Danita Gatti, you have removed yours.
I'm here, Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, my intervention was in support of the Honorable Member for the County of Homa Bay. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to support her question simply because of what has been happening, especially when it comes to sanitary pads, Mr. Speaker, and that is why it is as urgent that the ministry really comes out clear. Mr. Speaker, you saw a girl the other day who actually committed suicide because of period shame, Mr. Speaker, and I'm just saying that it is urgent.
Honorable Danita Gatti, you know, people might think that you want to use your condition to breach the standing orders. You say you want to support a question. What procedure is that? You know, that is totally out of order. Eh? You know, the fact that something that excites you has been mentioned by another member here, that is no opportunity for you to breach the rules. There is no provision for supporting a question. If you want to support what the Honorable Gladys Wanga has raised, appear alongside her before the committee so that those issues you are saying will have some meaning and effect, perhaps. But now, please, I would not want to begin applying standing order number 107, because when somebody is out of order, we should now begin applying it regularly to avoid further breach. But for the time being, you are pardoned. Statement by the Honorable Didmus Barasa Mutua.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 44, 2 Section C, I wish to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding increased road carnage and lack of implementation of mitigation measures on road accidents by National Transport and Safety Authority and the Traffic Department of the National Police Service in the country. Honorable Speaker, an accurate calculation of the real cost of traffic crashes in the country is the first step to curbing the rising incidence of road carnage. What is lacking in the country is a culture on which road safety can thrive if road users understand the cost of their actions or inactions, both at the personal and national level. The World Health Organization, back in 2014, estimated that Kenya loses about 5% of its GDP, or 387.5 billion, to traffic crashes. The figure was expected to rise and currently is most likely to be above the global average of 3%. In the first 10 months of 2018, 2,585 people had lost their lives on Kenyan roads, according to the NTSA. This was an 11% increase from 2,331 in the same period in 2017. Honorable Speaker, the nation's wealth is eaten away through ways such as medical bills, property damage, and the injury to or death of economically productive citizens. Eliminating road traffic deaths and injuries is an achievable goal, but to do it, Kenya must change not just its roads and its drivers, but itself. The country must revolutionize its approach to the problem and start seeing as the reason the road system and indeed the entire fabric of government exists. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the following. 1. What are the major causes of road accidents in the country as investigated by National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA, and the National Police Service in the country? 2. What are the mitigation measures being undertaken and interventions by the ministry? And what is the mandate of NTSA with regard to reducing road carnage and actions on police investigations, and whether corrective actions are acted upon and implemented? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
As Honorable Barasa, you may have noticed that I was almost declining to approve. The reason being that you are a member of that committee. But the matter is a serious one, which I would like through that statement you have sought, the entire House to be able to express itself. But otherwise, when you ask about the mandate, and the mandate of that organization is spelled in the legislation establishing it, you would be otherwise in breach of the standing orders. But I would want that statement to be made available for the entire House to be able to express itself. Where's the chair of the committee? The Committee on Administration and National Security. Is there a vice chair of that committee? What is the problem with this? Oh, the vice chair is here.
I'm here, Your Excellency.
You don't follow the proceedings.
We were talking something with the Honorable Munyinyi. I'm sorry, Your Honorable Speaker. Yeah. Honorable Speaker, you can repeat because we were busy on something else. Very busy. I'm very sorry about that.
The member seeking the statement is from also your county.
Yes, sir.
And you are busy consulting with the member for Kadui, who is also from your county. So you have not followed the request.
I didn't. Munyinyi kept me busy. Honorable Speaker. Yeah. I'm honest. He had kept me busy, and I lost.
Honorable Barasa, would you want to summarize for the benefit of the vice chair to give an undertaking?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. What I seek from the committee, we have had very many accidents in this country. And every time an accident happens, police carry out investigations. And I really want to know whether those police investigations includes actions that should be implemented to prevent reoccurrence of those accidents, or they only investigate for other purposes other than coming up with a corrective action. So it's on this basis that I want the committee to provide a statement on what is the role of NTSA and the Traffic Department of National Police Service in mitigating against these very many accidents that are eating into the population of this country, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Honorable Aluke.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's good that Honorable Ditmas Barasa is also a member of that committee, same committee, Honorable Speaker. And let him give us 2 weeks. We are going to respond on that, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. 2 weeks, the statement will be made available, and we would expect, Honorable Aluke, this statement to be as comprehensive as possible. Because if you look at the written text from the Honorable Barasa, he has raised a number of issues, which I think it will be fair that whoever is going to help you come up with a statement responds to as many aspects of the question as possible. It's a matter that I think is happening almost throughout the country on a daily basis. Next statement by the member for Homa Bay Town.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a request for statement on interdiction of teachers and violation of trade union rights. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44, sub 2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Education and Research regarding interdiction of teachers and violation of trade union rights by the Teacher Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, the TSC recently interdicted 280 teachers who participated in a call by the Kenya National Union of Teachers to boycott training programs on the competency-based curriculum on the basis of poor preparations by the Teacher Service Commission. Further, Honorable Speaker, over 42 of these teachers have since been dismissed, while over 100 of them have been suspended for 6 months for participating in this industrial action. Honorable Speaker, given these circumstances, I would like the chairperson of the committee to inform the House of the following. A, why did the Teacher Service Commission take action against 280 teachers who are responding to their union's call for action as provided for by Article 41 of the Constitution without procedurally engaging the union on this matter? B, why has Teacher Service Commission failed to deduct and remit union dues for the months of July and August 2019, contrary to the provisions of labor laws and in the International Labor Organization Convention number 98 on the protection and rights of trade unions, thus crippling the operations of the Kenya National Union of Teachers to the detriment of the teachers? C, why has the Teacher Service Commission refused to comply with the conditions of the collective bargaining agreement of 2017-2021 and the International Labor Organization Convention 95, prohibiting withdrawal of earnings by workers through the introduction of 2 parallel payrolls, one for non-NAT members who benefit from the CBA and another for those not benefiting from the CBA, yet the benefits of the collective bargaining agreement are for all teachers in the teaching service, and sufficient funding has been appropriated by the National Assembly for these payments. D, why is the Teacher Service Commission refusing to comply with court orders, particularly by formulating and implementing career progression guidelines and teacher professional development guidelines, contrary to the provisions of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and the Code of Regulations for Teachers, to the detriment of teachers? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, Chair of Education, how long do you think you would take to respond to give that statement requested?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think the committee will undertake to respond to that statement in 2 weeks' time. Thank you.
Within 2 weeks' time?
Yes.
And I think some of these issues, some of those statements, even as you come up with them, be prepared that there could be, whoever will be on the chair will allow other members an opportunity to also make comments. Not on the request, when the statement is brought. So don't raise your hand, Honorable Atandi. It is not at least, you don't want to say you want to support the statement. No, don't add. Honorable Wanga, don't add. But that's why I'm saying, given the nature of the statement sought by the Honorable Kaluma, Honorable Meli should expect that when he comes to make the statement, there will be a chance, an opportunity for members to make comments and seek clarifications on what will have been provided. Next statement. Yeah, Honorable Pukose, what's your point of order?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, last week on Thursday, I sought a statement on the forceful eviction of my constituents of Molem. And
Honorable Wanga, what is you seem to be agitated about something.
Mr. Speaker, we have students, in this chamber listening to us. And Mr. Speaker, this is not just the first time the Honorable Doctor, whom I really respect, has said that I seeked. The word in English is sought. So that is what I wanted to correct, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sure the member. I'm sure the member should. The member is going to thank you for drawing his attention to the correct.
Honorable Speaker, I can assure you that when my KCSE results is compared to that of Honorable Wanga, I scored higher than her in English. But I accept her correction. The word is I sought. I accept. Yes. And when you are corrected, thank you, Honorable Wanga. But that does not still negate the fact that I scored higher than that. And I'm a surgeon, yeah, yes. And the only surgeon in the Kenyan Parliament.
Sorry, Honorable Pukose.
Honorable Speaker.
Don't get derailed.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Last week on Thursday, I sought a statement from the chair
No. Proceed.
No,
proceed.
I'll accept information, Honorable.
Proceed. Ignore unnecessary distractions.
Honorable Speaker, I sought a statement on the forceful eviction of my constituents at Molem, and you were directed that the chair responds today. The chair of the Committee on National Security. This morning, the chair called me, and unfortunately, the problem is emanating from our table office that the dispatch of the statement to the ministry has not been done as late as yesterday. It had not been done. So he's requested that if he can be able to respond by next week on Thursday. And I agreed with him because I thought it's good that a solution is sought to the issue of the people of Molem, and therefore I think that is more important than just responding without anything happening on the ground. So I concurred with the chair, and I wanted that for the record purposes that this be noted by the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
And the clerk to make a follow-up also to ensure that whatever is sought here in the plenary is dispatched to the appropriate ministries with speed. Now, I see some members with intervention. The member for Gishogo, don't raise your hand up. I can see you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the provisions of studying under 44(2)(c, Mr. Speaker, I had drafted a statement sometime last week, and I was seeking to have a statement by the chair of Trade Industries and Cooperatives on a matter of national interest, a matter that touches on substandard oil at the port. Mr. Speaker, you were misguided, I must say so, because the reason why the statement was rejected was that the matter is active before the committee. As I stand here, and I would like the chair or any other person to confirm from the committee whether that matter is active. It is not active, and I was denied a chance to ask a statement of a national interest. Mr. Speaker, I beg if I can be allowed to ask or to seek that statement from the chair.
Well, let me just say this. You know, I have to keep bedding backwards and forth because it looks like the two induction workshops we have held and the incessant pleas that we have been making that please look at the standing orders don't seem to be falling on deaf ears. Honorable Gishimu, if you wanted to contest that, all you needed to do is come straight to my office so that we examine that, so that the people advising the speaker then can be called to come and explain what it is, why it is that they misled the speaker to say that the matter is active before the committee. So, Honorable Gishimu, you are contesting the advice given by the staff. I would then advise that you go to the clerk's office with the request for statements, and then the clerk call the officer who advised, and the matter will be resolved. I'm sure it doesn't need to be handled here. As we proceed, I can say, Honourable Member, don't bother raising your hand up. As long as you have pressed the intervention box. No, there's no system error. I can see the Honourable Member for Kamukunji, his card is showing that he has an intervention. So just relax. Relax. Let me recognize the presence of pupils from Utafiti Primary School, Kikuyu constituency, Kiambu County, in Speaker's Gallery. Member for Tinderet, you have to make the statement. Yes. Chair of Education.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, I seek to make a statement concerning people who died at Kabiange Primary School. So, Honorable Speaker, on 12th of September, Honorable Joyce Korir, Member of Parliament, Bomet County, sought a statement from the Chair of Education Committee regarding the death of Jacqueline Chemngeno, Class 6 pupil, Kabiange Primary School. Honorable Speaker, it was in the same floor of the House that I sought to bring the statement immediately because the matter was of national concern. Honorable Speaker, the same was transmitted to the Minister of Education and the Teacher Service Commission. Honorable Speaker, the committee received, I would say, a scanty report earlier on the same. And we as a Committee of Education went through it, and we decided that the ministry should take back the report and give us a comprehensive report on the same. So, Honorable Speaker, we've gotten a comprehensive report from the Teacher Service Commission about the circumstances and the events that surrounded the death of Jacqueline Chemngeno. Honorable Speaker, as you have directed, this is a very comprehensive report that that is responding to the issues that regards the death of this young soul. Honorable Speaker, I'll go straight away to read a statement, and I also want to put on record that the Committee of Education also sought to ask the CS, Minister of Education, to give a statement on the same as a CS, independent of the Teacher Service Commission, because school management, which is the BOM, is under the Minister of Education, while teacher management is under the Teacher Service Commission. So as I read this, I want to indicate to members and the House that the statement that I'm going through comes from the Teacher Service Commission. So, and I read, Mr. Speaker, this statement is purely a statement from the Teacher Service Commission, and we as a committee are just doing transmittal. Honorable Speaker, on Monday, 9 September 2019, the Commission received information from the County Director in charge of Bomet County to the effect that a pupil at Kabiangek Primary School, Konoin Sub-County, Bomet County, had committed suicide. The Commission also received allegation that before the untimely demise, Jacqueline had been scorned and humiliated by her class teacher, Mrs. Jennifer Chemtai, allegedly for soiling her school uniform during her menses. It was further alleged that it is as a result of the supposed humiliation by the teacher that the pupil committed suicide on 6 September 2019. Honorable Speaker, in responding to this, the Teacher Service Commission has just outlined its mandates as per the Act, and I will not go over that because that is actually in the public domain. I will go straight away to the issues and how the Commission has handled this particular matter. Honorable Speaker, the CEO says that due to the sensitivity of the matter, the facts of the case and the wide publicity of the issue, the Commission invoked the provisions of Regulation 1.6 of the Code of Regulations for Teachers and decided to send the teacher, Mrs. Jennifer Chemtai, on compulsory leave. Mr. Speaker, the objective of sending the teacher on compulsory leave is to accord the Commission a conducive environment to conduct impartial investigation on the matter and confirm any professional culpability on the part of the teacher. This will also accord the teacher her personal security and safety and grant her an opportunity to defend herself from the allegations and also to accord her the due process of the law. On preliminary investigation, The commission also launched investigation on the matter by constituting a joint investigating team comprising officers from the commission and the State Department of Basic Education and Early Learning. The investigating team comprised of the following officers: A, County Director of Education, Bomet; TSC County Director of the same county; Quality Assurance and Standard Officer; Sub-County Director of Education, that is Konoin; TSC Sub-County Director of the sub-county, and the Curriculum Support Officer of the zone. The team visited the school on 11th of September to investigate allegations that the pupil committed suicide as a result of being ridiculed by one of her teachers for soiling her school uniform. At the material time, the team had only one report from the head teacher, confirming that Jacqueline Chemngeno of Standard 6, admission number 006, committed suicide on Friday, 6th of September 2019. On arrival, the team was received by the head teacher of the school, that is the investigating team. Normal teaching and learning process was on in the school, and there was peace within the school environment. The pupils and the teachers were all in the school, except for Mrs. Jennifer Chemtai. The teacher who was accused to have, except Jennifer Chemtai, the teacher who was accused to have harassed Jacqueline. She kept away fearing for her life after intense demonstration by the local community witnessed the previous day. Findings, preliminary findings. On Friday, 6th of September, the late Jacqueline reported to school as usual at about 9:45 a.m. together with the rest of the pupils. She attended the pastoral program, that is the PPI, lesson in the morning. During the English lesson, which occurred between 10 a.m. and 10:25 a.m., the class teacher and teacher of English, Madam Jennifer Chemtai, asked the pupils to write a composition using pencils. The few pupils who did not have pencils, including the late Jacqueline, were instructed to go and borrow from the lower classes. Jacqueline hesitated, that is, she didn't want to go. The teacher prevailed upon her to go to the next class and borrow so that she could do the assignment with others. As she walked out, the teacher noticed that she had soiled her school uniforms. She then followed her outside the classroom. The team confirmed that the teacher politely advised Jacqueline to accompany her to the office to get the sanitary towels from the deputy head teacher, Mrs. Caroline Rono, after which she could go home, change her uniform, and get back to school. While the teacher headed towards the office to source for the sanitary towels, Jacqueline walked towards the gate and went home straight. When the teacher finished the inquiry on the whereabouts of the towels, she spotted Jacqueline walking towards the gate. Her attempts to call her back did not bear any fruit. Upon reaching their home, her mother inquired why she had come home early, apparently. Jacqueline told her that the teacher had advised her to go and change her uniform she has stained and get back to school. The mother similarly instructed her to change and wash her uniform and return to school in the afternoon. The mother asked her to wash one of her clothes. She complied, picked a bucket and a lasso, and went to the river at around 2 p.m. At around 2 p.m., word reached Jacqueline's family that she had committed suicide. So I think she picked the bucket and a lasso and walked to the river. But around 2 p.m., word reached Jacqueline's family that she had committed suicide. According to statements given by her classmates, and I think the statements are annexed in this report, or in this statement, the class teacher, Madam Jennifer Chemtai, did not scold or ridicule Jacqueline for soiling her school uniform. That is the statements that are next to this report by the fellow classmates. Jacqueline's parents separated a long time ago. Her mother and her siblings were staying at her maternal grandmother's place. Unfortunately for Jacqueline, both her mother and grandmother are addicted to alcohol. It is Jacqueline who had the responsibility to undertake all the family costs. Her elder sister had been hospitalized for terminal illness for the last 2 months at Kapkatet General Hospital, leaving behind her 2 children under the care of Jacqueline. The sister had just been not finished. Oh, thank you. The sister had just been discharged from hospital at the time of investigation. The investigations team also found out that the school had received its full consignment of sanitary towels for second term. At the time of our visit, that is the investigators' visit, the team could not establish the number of sanitary towels received and those dispensed to the learners due to poor record keeping. However, it was confirmed that the school had received and distributed this consignment for the month of August and September 2019. Also, I have an attachment to show what they did or how much they received. The team counted 17 packets of the remainder of the said consignment in the school store. According to the teacher in charge, Jacqueline and the rest of the eligible girls received their supply of the towels for the month of August and September on 30th of July 2019. Mr. Speaker, the team further visited Jacqueline's home and confirmed that she had used one of the 2 packets of sanitary towels given to her by the school on 30th July 2019. This was corroborated by the mother. The way forward. In conclusion, the commission had perused the preliminary report and directed its officers to cover certain areas. As an employer in the public service, the commission's mandate is limited to professional culpability of its employees and breach of regulations governing the teaching service. It is in this regard the commission may also be guided by the technical reports from the specialized government agencies who are also seized of the matter. That means it's not only the commission, but other government agencies are also dealing with the same matter. Accordingly, therefore, once the final investigation report is out, the commission will make its decision on the matter based on the provisions of the law and the provisions of the Code of Regulations for Teachers and the appropriate administrative action, even based on the evidence and the merits of the case. Annexed on this particular report, that's the conclusion, are the writings from the classmates. We have also what is in appendixes. We have also the report, an indication from the teacher that how he received the sanitary towels. And we have pictures, which I have in this report. So, Honorable Speaker, that is the report as by the Teacher Service Commission. That's the statement as by the Teacher Service Commission regarding the death, the circumstances, and the events that surrounded the death of the little girl, Jacqueline Chemngeno. This is purely a commission statement, and it's not a committee or any other statement. 2, I therefore want to table it, and 2, we are yet to receive a report from the Ministry of Education, a statement from the Ministry of Education regarding the same. And when we get it, we shall actually table the same on the floor of the House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Danita Gatti.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have listened to the statement by the Chair of Education. And Mr. Speaker, the statement does not add up, even if it comes from TSC, Kaplong Girls in Bomet. And Honorable Speaker, my heart bleeds for this girl. My heart bleeds for this girl, Honorable Speaker, simply because many of us grew up in those times where, Mr. Speaker, affording a sanitary pad was a luxury. And Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that we cannot just leave with the ministry or TSC to take care of. There is no way, Honorable Speaker, that TSC can produce such a report to mean that the girl, Mr. Speaker, TSC is saying that the family of the girl, the mother or the grandparent of the girl was an alcoholic. And how does that translate into period shaming? Mr. Speaker, schools, and it's unfortunate that the teacher that is alleged to have, who is alleged to have done this is a female teacher, Honorable Speaker. There is no way
enough.
a female...
That's it. I mean, you can't...
No.
You know, Honorable Gatti, please, you know the other members also want to make some contribution. Honorable Emilio Diambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm actually perturbed by the statement that is coming from the TSC. And Mr. Speaker, the reason I'm perturbed is usually when there is any form of violence against young girls or women, they are then made to be the culprits. Whether it is period shaming, Mr. Speaker. The facts are out there, and we know that this girl was shamed by the teacher. Now what is happening? The mother was an alcoholic, the father was absent. So what if the father and mother are alcoholic? Half of the country are alcoholics. They don't commit suicide because they are alcoholics. There are many people, even in this parliament, most of us have alcoholics in our families. We have not committed suicide. Mr. Speaker, I am requesting Kenya National Commission on Human Rights to go to that school, undertake independent investigations, and sue whoever is responsible. If the school is responsible, sue the school. If the ministry have not provided sanitary pads, which we passed in budget, sue the ministry. But we are not going to have our girls shamed because of a natural thing like having periods. Maybe as members of parliament, symbolically, we should come here as women MPs with blood behind so that people can normalize having periods. It is very normal, Mr. Speaker. We cannot be shamed for what is normal. Otherwise, soon we'll be told to leave our breasts at home. Periods are like our breasts. It's part of our body. Let us not shame girls for naturally occurring things, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, honourable members, don't raise your hands up. You know, I can see from the intervention box. Member for Isiolo, don't raise your hand up. You know, you are just merely causing unnecessary distraction. Honorable Kubai Ringo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to comment on this statement, Mr. Speaker. But from the onset, Mr. Speaker, I would say that that statement from TSC is cosmetic. And it was tailored to protect the teacher. In as much as they send the sequence of events up to when the girl went home, that is where they started picking issues to victimize the family or to create an impression that the family's problems are the ones which led the girl to commit suicide. And diverging from the original problem of not having sanitary towels. In as much as they are saying they gave the girl some sanitary towels, and they could not account for the ones which they had been given, meaning could be they weren't there. And more so, why are they to go independently when they knew this particular issue was under a lot of national interest? I would request for an independent investigation into the same, Mr. Speaker, and we put aside the TSC issue.
Honorable John, but let me just remind ourselves, and I've seen there are members who have been in this house continuously since the year 2008. This was a request for a statement. It does not result in any resolution of the House. So please, if you know you have sat in this House since that time, you should be one of the people to show an example of how it is done. It was a statement, and you know, you choose what you want to get. If you wanted a resolution of the House to go in the direction that I hear from some of you, the member who saw the statement should have known how best to handle the situation. If she wanted the House to make a resolution, but for the time being, it's just comments because this is a statement. So, Honorable John Bundy.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to register my appreciation to the committee through the chair for at least responding to this House in a short time, as quickly as possible, because this is a matter of national importance. I think the issue of this girl caught the attention of this country for what happened to a small young girl who is below the age of 15. And Mr. Speaker, listening to the chair of the committee, I get it that this report is based on the findings and investigation done, and the witness was TSC, which is the employer of the teacher who was purportedly or allegedly made this girl to commit suicide. But the Ministry of Education is still doing probably its investigation. I would only urge that the committee also gets to this House the report of the Ministry of Education and any other investigative agency so that this matter can be addressed conclusively. But Mr. Speaker, my concern is that I think we are probably dealing with symptoms of the bigger problem in this society, Mr. Speaker. A young girl of 13, 12, 11 years committing suicide, I don't think we should look at it in a narrow perspective of failure to provide sanitary towels. I think we need to ask ourselves fundamental question. Why is it that there is increased cases of teenagers committing suicide? If it is just about of ridicule and being mocked, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we can pass a judgment that that can lead to suicide. There must be something that is triggering children in this country to start thinking of committing suicide and even getting involved in other criminal acts. Mr. Speaker, just the other day, we saw the video that was going around, that went viral about a teenager. So I think we need to address this matter of children, the increased cases of teenagers getting involved in committing suicide. And Mr. Speaker, I listened to Honorable Millie Odhiambo, and she was talking so passionately. And Mr. Speaker, I want to just urge Millie and tell her that we also feel the same. And by the way, the teacher who is being alleged to have pushed this child to commit suicide is not even a male teacher. She is a female teacher who should understand even much better. So this is not a question of people being insensitive. It is a question of finding out why this particular child committed suicide, and if it is because of some negligence, some lack of attention, Mr. Speaker, then it should be addressed. But if it is a bigger, wider societal problem, as I suspect it is, then we need to deal with it. Because really, if we just pepper around and start condemning and hard some people who probably forced the child to commit suicide without asking, why is it that this child could not handle this situation and thought that the best way to handle it is to commit suicide? Children really fear death. I remember that I don't think there is any time I ever feared death like when I was a child. Mr. Speaker, I remember when my mother was bitten with a snake. Made me to fear snakes to date because I was a child, and I was told that that could lead to my mother's death. So, Mr. Speaker, children really fear death. If a child commits suicide, we must ask ourselves, what is leading more children into committing suicide? And otherwise, the way we are taking this debate, I think we are going to debate it in a narrow perspective. But, Mr. Speaker, my final comment, committee to go and get more findings, not to just rely on the finding of TSC. The TSC has done their bit. The Ministry of Education will do their bit. The other investigative organs, I heard DCI is has taken over this matter. I don't know to what extent. Let them bring a comprehensive report, now merging all these reports to the House, so that we can debate from a point of information. Thank you.
So, of course, honourable members, I'm told that what Honourable John Bandy addressed about death, I'm told even those who preach about going to heaven, the thing they dread most is death. So it's that's paraphrasing the late Steve Jobs, member for the leader majority.
Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention, I first want to thank the chair. Mr. Speaker, I think when a statement is sought, it's good the members of the House, they first go and get the statement. And you know, as people were debating, I looked at this statement from Teacher Service Commission, and it has a lot of information. Even photographs of the mother of this child presenting that there were even pads at home, even showing the tabulation of the stock delivered by the Ministry of Education of these items in that school, showing statements by her colleagues in class 6, even the stocks in that school at that time. So Teacher Service Commission, as a responsible institution, has done its bit. And I think what we need to deal with is now is a crime. It's suicide. So the only person who can give an answer to that matter, and that's not the only first one. There are many Kenyans who are committing crime every day. It's the office of the DCI with the kind of forensic lab we have. So, Mr. Speaker, I think the chair has done. If anybody picks this document, and I really want to ask our colleagues, the female members of parliament, in fact, from where I sit, Mr. Speaker, I think, you know, during the budget making, our women reps wanted this budget to go to their NGAF. So it's another way of telling us that these pads must come to NGAF. No. Maybe that is the politics you are playing in the house. But TSC, Mr. Speaker, I have said many times, we are not in county assemblies. I have had my chance. I have listened to Honorable Mido Odhiambo, Honorable Bandi. People must learn to listen to me. They must learn to listen to me. If you want to make noise, you know, you can go meet me on the car park. But in the chamber, you can't shout at me. Because the only person who can shout at me is my wife and my mother. Yeah, you can't. And you are not one of them. So, Mr. Speaker, this culture of shouting at you, Honorable Gladys Wanga, you know, I have the only person who can shout at me is my wife who gave birth to 5 of my sons, or my mother. You are the member for Homa Bay, I'm the member for Garissa. Listen to me, I listen to you. Yes. Yeah, no feelings in the house. Yeah, I agree with the new member for Ugenya. So people, there are no feelings in the house. People must read this report. Mr. Speaker, I remember when we were passing the budget, our sisters wanted this money to go there. So as I was sitting reading, Nancy Macharia, I want to thank her, and TSC, they have given a comprehensive report. I'm sure Professor Magoha will bring a comprehensive report. We want to go to the bottom of how our daughter died. Let us ask the Committee of Security to ask the DCI to do an investigation. And I told the lady the other day, let us even invite the DPP. The DPP can ask for an inquest. Let us ask the DPP to ask for an inquest into how this child died. But the chair, Mr. Speaker, this report which he has tabled has even the small girl's mother is here saying, I have got these items in my house. The headmistress has given the stock supplied by Ministry of Education. So before you bash TSC, Mr. Speaker, I really want people to read any report, committee, statements. First read, don't jump from your chair. And next time, please, Mr. Speaker, nobody should shout at me. I'm serious.
Now, I will allow the member for Homa Bay Town 1 minute. Now,
Mr. Speaker,
it's not agenda issue.
The manner by which this matter came before the floor is limiting, and I would request that either this matter be brought in a manner that may allow the House to investigate it properly, or the committee on its own motion takes it as a matter that can be dealt with, and we have a report upon which we can make firm resolutions. Mr. Speaker, it is sad we are told this pupil died. The report which is before us, I listened to the chair very well and to people who have contributed. There is no mention of a post-mortem report. There is no mention of police investigation of death or investigations by the agencies that should be undertaking investigation. So that what is confirmed before us as members is that this schoolgirl is actually dead. We cannot conclude it was suicide. Remember, you can also be murdered by hanging. What we would request for is an approach that goes beyond confirming the fact of death to what caused the death. And I would request that the committee takes it up or a member takes up proper procedure so that we can properly investigate. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let me hear the member from the constituency that the girl came from.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, let me say the death of that girl was unfortunate. Personally, I attended the funeral of the said girl. I was present when she was buried. And Mr. Speaker, what we are witnessing here is something unique. There are not many girls that commit suicide, Mr. Speaker. This is a very unique case on its own. Mr. Speaker, I've heard what the chair said of the report from the TSC. Mr. Speaker, it's a sad state of affairs, Mr. Speaker, to push blame to the parents of a child who has committed suicide. When I was present there, Mr. Speaker, at the funeral, there were several allegations, Mr. Speaker, that the TSC were trying to protect the teacher, that there were allegations of threats made against several people, that if they spoke, they were going to be done ABCD. And that came out at the funeral. In fact, one lady, those who are watching, there was a clip captured in the television by a lady who was working for an NGO. Personally, she was threatened by TSC and teachers that if she reveals the truth, something bad was going to happen to her. Mr. Speaker, what my colleague Kaluma says is what should exactly happen. Let's get the Committee of Education be seized of this matter, investigate it, get to the root of the problem. What we are being told, Mr. Speaker, that the mother was a drunkard. I personally have known that family, where the mom coming from. She's not a drunkard. If she happens to drink, then somewhere else. And it has nothing to do with the suicide, Mr. Speaker. And also, Mr. Speaker, what came out of this girl was that it was her first time she experienced menstruation. She had not experienced before, and it was her first time that ever happened. Mr. Speaker, it was unfortunate we lost a soul. And we don't want that to happen to any girl in this country. It should be the last, Mr. Speaker, and I think we should get to the root of this issue, get to the bottom of it, but I don't accept and I don't agree with TSC to absolve their teacher based on their own evidence and not evidence from an independent body. Mr. Speaker, I say sorry to the family, and I feel for them, and I think it's incumbent upon this House that we rise to the occasion, get to the root of the problem so that no family in this country would ever experience the same. Thank you.
Sorry, honourable members. This was a request for a statement. Now we must do business also. If you desire, if any of you desires an investigation of this matter, you know what you need to do. Yes, you know what you need to do. So even now, all that you are required, I'm required to do is to allow you to make a few comments. Just a few comments. Now you have taken more than 30 minutes. Those are not few. Those are not few. So those are enough for the time being. Nobody wishes, I don't think whether anybody here really would relish to have a child of that age die. So, but if you desire the House to resolve to have some investigation, please take the necessary steps in terms of our standing orders. Otherwise now everybody will start saying that another one was a drunkard, this another one says this one is a church minister or a priestess. I mean, I don't know. You are here, you don't know what anybody is doing out there in the village. So, now all these are, if you want the matter investigated, please just follow the standing orders and the House will will resolve one way or other. For the time being, that suffice. Leader majority.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee following its meeting held on Tuesday, September 17, 2019. On Tuesday next week, Mr. Speaker, the House Business Committee has scheduled the Finance Bill 2019 for consideration in the Committee of the Whole House, and it's important for members to note that the bill shall be concluded on or before September 26. Therefore, any proposed amendments should be forwarded to the clerk's office as soon as possible. Honorable Speaker, will also consider the revised sessional paper number 1 of 2019 on the policy framework for reforming education and training for sustainable development in Kenya, and a petition by the executive regarding the variation of the boundaries of Mount Elgon Forest Reserve. Should we not conclude them today? Honorable Speaker, also prioritized for second reading next week are the following bills. Should we not conclude them today? The Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bill number 26 of 2018, the County Government Revenue Raising Process Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2018, and the petition to County Assembly's Procedure Bill, Senate Bill number 22 of 2018. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, subsection 5 and 6, I wish to convey that the Cabinet Secretary for Education will appear before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research on Thursday, September 26, to answer the following questions. Question number 25 from the Honorable Lesuda. Question number 333 from the Honorable Peter Kaluma. Question number 347 from the Honorable Ezekiel Ombaki. Question number 355 from the Honorable Godfrey Odanga. Question number 382 from the Honorable Joshua Kandie. Question number 387 from the Honorable John Wambugu. Question number 389 from the Honorable Charles Njagagwa. And question number 403 from the Honorable Robert Gidinji. Number 2, Honorable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary for Health will appear before the Departmental Committee on Health on Thursday, September 26, 2019, to answer questions from the following members. Question number 380 from the Honorable Oro Onyoka. Question number 384 from the Honorable Dismas Barasa. Question number 383 from the Honorable Florence Mutua. And lastly, the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Culture and Heritage will appear before the Sports, Culture and Tourism Committee on Thursday, September 26, to answer questions number 359 from the Honorable James Burgo and question number 404 from the Honorable Gideon Keter. Honorable Speaker, I really want to ask members that they must be there for their questions when the CSS are appearing. And if they are not available, then the chairs of those committees can provide them with a written answer at the earliest opportunity available. Finally, Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, 24 September 2019, at the rise of the House to schedule business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, honourable members.
Bandi.
Call the next order.
Order number 8, the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2019, second reading.
Honourable members, you will recall that yesterday, Wednesday, 18 September 2019, the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2019 was listed as order number 12 in the order paper of the afternoon sitting for consideration at second reading. Upon the order being called out, and before the motion for the second reading of the bill was made, the Honorable Gitonga Murugara George, MP, member for Tharaka constituency, rose on a point of order and sought the indulgence of the chair not to allow the bill to proceed to second reading. The Honorable Murugara ascertained that clauses 50 and 51 of the bill, which propose to amend the Proceedings of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act number 9 of 2009 are unconstitutional to the extent that they contain provisions limiting the right to privacy guaranteed under Article 31 of the Constitution and by threatening to erode the settled principle of advocate-client confidentiality. Honourable members, that claim elicited interest from several other members, including the leader of the majority party, the Honourable Dr. Otiende Amolo, Jennifer Shamala, John Bandi, leader of the minority party, the Honourable Kirima Ngushine, Chrysanthus Wamalwa, Muhammad Junet, and Jude Jomo. Another matter that arose relates to the propriety of including proposed amendments to the Proceedings of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act in the Finance Bill 2019, and which some members felt were not incidental to the tax and other measures proposed in the Finance Bill. As you may recall, the member for Kiambu constituency introduced a separate dimension to the point of order. His concern was that if the House went ahead and debated the provisions of Clause 43 of the Finance Bill relating to control bank interest rates, any resolution of the House on the matter would sound a death knell to the proposals in the Banking Amendment Bill 2019 moved by himself, currently under consideration by the House, and which address the ambiguity issues of the capping of interest rates provision. The assertion by the member for Kiambu constituency was based on Standing Order number 49, subsection 1, which provides that no motion may be moved which is the same in substance as any question which has been resolved either in the affirmative or in the negative during the preceding 6 months in the same session. Honourable members, from the members' contributions, there are 4 questions which arose that require the determination by the Speaker. 1, what is the scope of a finance bill? Is a finance bill another form of a statute law miscellaneous amendment bill? And can the bill be used to introduce proposals which are not incidental to taxation or revenue-raising measures? 2, do clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill 2019 offend the Constitution? 3, do clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill 2019 comply with the standard of disclosure set out in the Constitution? And 4, finally, how does the inclusion and subsequent consideration by the House of provisions proposing to amend the Banking Act under Clause 43 of the Finance Bill 2019 affect the Banking Amendment Bill 2019 currently before the House? You will also recall, for honourable members, that following the issues raised, I provided preliminary guidance to the House by allowing the debate on the motion to second reading of the bill to proceed, and undertook to make a considered ruling on the matter today. Honourable members, from the outset, may I state that a finance bill has a nature and form similar to that of bills commonly termed in parliamentary parlance as omnibus bills. Although there exists no precise definition of the expression omnibus bill, Andrew O'Brien and Mark Boss in the House of Commons of Canada, Practice and Procedure, 2nd edition, describe an omnibus bill as one that seeks to amend, repeal, or enact several acts, and is characterized by the fact that it is made up of a number of related but separate initiatives, close quote. For all intents and purposes, a finance bill is usually intended to amend several separate but related statutes on taxation and revenue raising. In terms of history, the practice and usage of omnibus bills dates as far back as the year 1850 in the United States of America Congress, when Senator Henry Clay introduced a series of resolutions to seek a compromise and avert a crisis between the North and the South over the issue of slavery. The compromise of 1850 covered 5 separate legislative subjects in terms of enactment, amendment, and repeal, including partial abolition of slave trade, entry of the state of California into the Union, creation of 2 territorial governments, and settlement of a boundary dispute between the states of Texas and New Mexico. The practice in Canada dates back to the year 1888 and also exists in the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand, save for differing procedural requirements as to what such bills may or may not contain. Honourable members, the procedural propriety of introducing omnibus bills is therefore an established practice, albeit exercised with caution. From the Canadian parliamentary experience, O'Brien and Boss and the following to say with regard to the propriety of omnibus bills, and I quote, "It appears to be entirely proper in procedural terms for a bill to amend, repeal, or enact more than one act, provided that the requisite notice is given, that is, accompanied by a royal recommendation, in brackets where necessary, and that it follows the form required." Close the quotes. It is indisputable, an indisputable fact that the Parliament of Kenya relies on practices and precedents in the aforementioned jurisdictions. Hence, it has become an established practice that bills of omnibus nature have been introduced and passed by Parliament and assented to by the President. Indeed, honourable members, Article 94, Clause 1 of the Constitution clearly states that legislative authority of the Republic is derived from the people and at the national level is vested in and exercised by Parliament. Further, Article 109, Clause 1 of the Constitution provides that Parliament shall exercise its legislative power through bills passed by Parliament and assented to by the President. It's worth noting that there exists no prescription as to the nature, limitation, or form that bills introduced in Parliament for passage ought to take. Guidance in this respect only exists in the standing orders. Of particular importance in this respect is Standing Order number 114, providing for and the manner of introduction of bills, and Standing Order number 127 regarding public participation, and Standing Order 133, subsections 5 and 6 regarding scope of amendments which may be permitted at committee of the whole House. With regard to Standing Order 114, there are 3 parameters set out for scrutiny before a bill is published. That is whether the proposal, A, affects county governments, B, is a money bill as outlined in Article 114 of the Constitution, or C, conforms to the Constitution and the law and the format and style of the House. With regard to bills emanating from the executive, which have by tradition been introduced in the House by the leader of the majority party or the chairperson of the relevant departmental committees, this House had occasion during the review of the standing orders at the close of the 11th Parliament to introduce a new standing order number 114A. This standing order empowers the Speaker to exempt legislative proposals originating from the party forming the national government from the detailed and rigorous pre-publication scrutiny on condition that the proposal is accompanied by a copy of the relevant cabinet approval. The cabinet approval notwithstanding, any proposal so exempted is still interrogated by the clerk in terms of its conformity to the Constitution and the law and the format and style of the House. The Finance Bill 2019 is an example of such a proposal, having been introduced under the hand of the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. Honourable members, it is therefore clear that the House has in place proper mechanisms to assess the propriety of a legislative proposal, both in form and substance. Questions relating to the scope of omnibus bills and proposed amendments thereof at the Committee of the Whole House stage have arisen on a few isolated cases in the 12th and preceding parliaments. I will highlight only 2 cases just to jog the memory of the House. First, as you may recall, on 28th of August 2018, the member for Arienda constituency, the Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo, raised a point of order challenging the constitutionality of the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Bill 2018, National Assembly Bill number 12 for 2018, in its entirety. In respect to this matter, I made the following ruling. There is nothing unconstitutional about this bill. The term omnibus does not refer to minor or trivial amendments. In fact, you could be talking about making minor amendments to existing law, but you may just insert one word where it talks of 10% and make it 50%. That could be monumental. So it is not the volume of the text that should be the issue to be considered. On this, the courts must also allow Parliament to do its legislative work. Let them deal with the interpretation of the constitutionality or otherwise of bills that have been passed by this House. We cannot be held hostage by courts saying, we think this is an omnibus law or there are too many amendments. A finance bill, for instance, is an omnibus bill. It amends several laws to deal with revenue-raising measures or even repeals in entirety certain taxation provisions in existing laws. Some of them have such great import that if one was to say the issue of substance vis-a-vis the text, the two will not go hand in hand. My view is that since the issue of omnibus law is as old as the year 1850, the issue of omnibus is not one that offends the practice anywhere in the jurisdictions we compare ourselves with. We have traditions and customs. Our Constitution has not disallowed miscellaneous amendments bills. I do not think whether we could say it is procedural. My guide would be that we consider the bills, our requirements is under Article 10, among other articles, Article 10, 2A, and 118, which are on public participation. So when a bill is published, whether it contains proposals to amend 2 acts of Parliament, or 10, or even 15, what our Constitution requires is that the public be involved. That is why we publicize those bills in the newspapers. So I think it is within the power of this House to legislate in terms of Articles 94 and 95. When we are legislating, we should not look over our shoulders, save to consider what the letter and spirit of the Constitution and its substance are. There has never been a precedent that says, do not use miscellaneous amendments processes. A close quote. As you can clearly tell, the practice of omnibus bills in our Parliament is an established one, and this House has, with the technical support of officers in the House, devised innovative strategies of navigating the complexity of omnibus bills based on the experiences with different bills of this kind. Honorable members, in the 10th Parliament, a question of similar import arose as to whether or not some amendments proposed on certain statutes in the Finance Bill 2011 within the scope and ambit of a finance bill. In addressing the question, my predecessor, Speaker Kennedy Marende, observed as follows, and I quote, Honorable members, the practice that is emerging where amendments covering diverse subject matters are introduced to a finance bill is one that requires to be reconsidered. Some of the amendments that have been proposed to finance bill in recent times and in the present case are matters that rightfully fall within the mandates of ministries other than the ministry responsible for finance, and consequently the mandates of various departmental committees of the House. Introducing such amendments to a finance bill denies the relevant ministries and committees of the House, stakeholders, and the general public the opportunity to reflect and deliberate on the proposed amendment. I close the quote. Honourable members, the question at hand that I have been invited to rule on closely mirrors the situation that my predecessor dealt with above. But be that as it may, and as earlier stated, the omnibus nature of a finance bill ought to be taken into account when resolving any question of the scope and principal object of a finance bill. As in May, Parliamentary Practice 24th edition, an authority on parliamentary practice and procedures, provides as follows at page 780. I quote, the scope of a finance bill is not limited to the imposition and alteration of taxes for the purpose of adjusting the revenue of a particular year. It is also not intended to be an annual act in the same sense as an appropriation act, but normally includes many provisions of permanent character for the regulation of fiscal machinery and other purposes, close the quotes. Emphasis on fiscal machinery. Honourable members, therefore the scope of a finance bill is not exclusively limited to imposition and alteration of taxation for the purpose of adjusting the revenue of a particular financial year, but also includes provisions of permanent character for the regulation of the fiscal machinery and other purposes. With regard to the inclusion of amendment to the Proceedings of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009 under clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill 2019, though not reflected in the long title of the bill, a correlation can be made between the proposed amendments with regard to reporting of suspicious transactions as a fiscal control on the loss of government revenue. It is my considered view that, as a House, we should not be seen to curtail our legislative mandate. The legislation passed by this House is measured as against the Constitution and the issues of concern to the people that it resolves. With this in mind, form is a secondary consideration. Now, members, Standing Order 47, subsection 3 places a particular obligation on the Speaker to exclude a motion from being debated or direct the amendment of a motion in an appropriate format where the motion either offends the Constitution, an act of Parliament, or the standing orders. Verbatim, the standing order provides, and I quote in clause 3, if the Speaker is of opinion that any proposed motion, A, is one which infringes on the debate on which it is likely to infringe any of these standing orders, and B, is contrary to the Constitution, an act of Parliament, without expressly proposing appropriate amendment to the Constitution or the act of Parliament. The Speaker may direct either that the motion is inadmissible or that notice of it cannot be given without such alteration as the Speaker may approve, or that the motion be referred to the relevant committee of the Assembly, pursuant to Article 114, Clause 1 of the Constitution. Honourable members, in parliamentary practice, a House of Parliament considers any bills by way of a motion seeking agreement of the House, either for the bill to be read a second time, for amendments to the bill to be considered and approved during committee of the whole House, or for the bill to be read a third time. In relation to the consideration of a bill, the role of the Speaker under Standing Order 47.3 is twofold. On the one hand, the Speaker is under an obligation to exclude any bill or part thereof from consideration by the House where such a bill or part of it patently violates the Constitution, any written law, or the standing orders, and the same violation is not curable through appropriate amendment or revision prior to the consideration of the bill. On the other hand, the Speaker is under further obligation to ensure that any bill under consideration by the House is insulated from any amendment or revision that may place it at odds with either a constitutional or statutory provision or violate the procedural prescriptions in the standing orders. Standing Order number 47.3 effectively excludes the participation of the House in the decision to be made by the Speaker, and as I have previously ruled, obliges the Speaker not to fold his or her arms and preside over deliberations that may lead to an unconstitutional or absurd result. Clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill 2019 seek to amend the provisions of the Proceedings of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009 to designate advocates, among other professionals, as reporting institutions of any suspicious transactions done by their clients. I understand the concern of the Honorable Murugara and all other lawyers in the House in trying to tie the attorney-client confidentiality, the right to privacy, and the right of access to information under Articles 31 and 35 of the Constitution, respectively. However, as members are aware, the Constitution is very clear on the rights and freedoms that may not be limited under any circumstances. Honourable members, Article 25 of the Constitution provides as follows, and I quote, "Despite any provision in this Constitution, the following rights and fundamental freedoms shall not be limited. A, freedom from torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. B, freedom from slavery or servitude. C, the right to a fair trial. And D, the right to an order of habeas corpus. A clear reading of Article 25 of the Constitution mandates this House to limit any other right, all fundamental freedom, subject only to the protections outlined in the Constitution. Up to that point, and without interrogating the merits of the proposals, the argument that clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill 2019 ought to be excluded from consideration by this House on account of limiting constitutional rights seems not to hold any water, in my view. Honourable members, Article 24 of the Constitution prescribes the manner in which the rights and fundamental freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution may be limited. In clauses 1 and 2 of the same article are instructive insofar as they state, and I quote, 1, a right or fundamental freedom in the Bill of Rights shall not be limited except by law, and then only to the extent that the limitation is reasonable and justifiable in an open and democratic society based on human dignity, equality, and freedom, taking into account all relevant factors, including A, the nature of the right or fundamental freedom, B, the importance of the purpose of the limitation, C, the nature and extent of the limitation, D, the need to ensure that the enjoyment of rights and fundamental freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and fundamental freedoms of others, E, the relation between the limitation and its purpose, and whether there are less restrictive means to achieve the purpose. Clause 2. Despite Clause 1, a provision in legislation limiting a right or fundamental freedom, A, in the case of a provision enacted or amended on or after the effective date, is not valid unless the legislation specifically expresses the intention to limit that right or fundamental freedom and the nature and extent of the limitation. B, shall not be construed as limiting the right or fundamental freedom unless the provision is clear and specific about the right or freedom to be limited and the nature and extent of the limitations. And C, shall not limit the right or fundamental freedom so far as to derogate from its core or essential content. Honourable members, Article 24, Clause 2 of the Constitution requires that any provision enacted or amended on or after 27th of August 2010 to expressly stipulate the intention to limit a fundamental right or freedom and the nature and extent of the limitation for the provision to be valid. I'm cognizant of the fact that the Proceedings of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act was enacted in 2009. To the extent that the Finance Bill 2019 proposes amendments to sections of the Act with a discernible link to the limitation of rights guaranteed under the Constitution, the said amendments ought to comply with the requirements of Article 24, Clause 2 of the Constitution. Clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill 2019 are not accompanied by any additional provision stating the intention to limit the right to privacy and the nature and extent of the limitation in relation to the new categories of professionals it seeks to designate as reporting institutions under the Proceedings of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2009. To this end, the two proposed provisions fail to comply with the standard of disclosure set out by the Constitution in Article 24(2) above, and therefore are procedurally defective. To this end, honourable members, given the clear provisions of Standing Order 47(3), paragraph B, which imposes an obligation on me to satisfy myself with regard to certain procedural and constitutional standards, I am constrained to order that these two provisions be excluded from consideration by this House during the second reading of the bill. I hasten to add also that this determination is only related to the procedural defects in the manner in which the proposed amendments have been presented. Nothing stops the mover of the bill or any other member from proposing the amendments in the appropriate format in a separate bill for the consideration of the House. At this stage, the question as to whether the two clauses would offend the Constitution if they were to comply with the standard of disclosure set in the Constitution and introduced as a separate bill does not arise. Honourable members, before I conclude, let me also allay the fears expressed by the Honourable Jude Jomo on the inclusion and subsequent consideration by the House of Clause 43 of the Finance Bill 2019, which seeks to amend the Banking Act and the manner in which it affects his Banking Amendment Bill 2019. As I stated in my preliminary directions to the House yesterday, the House has not yet expressed itself on the same bill sponsored by the Honourable Jude Jomo. Hence, the provisions of Standing Order 49 on revisiting a matter already decided on by the House does not arise. But for the benefit of the Honourable Member, the House and perhaps the general public and stakeholders who may be keenly tracking proceedings relating to that bill, there are three likely scenarios that may result. First, if Clause 43 of the Finance Bill 2019 is amended by this House to include provisions extracted from the Honourable Jude Jomo's bill, the Finance Bill 2019 is assented to by the President without any reservations, the object of the member will have been realized. Hence, there would be no need to proceed with the further consideration of the Honourable Jude Jomo's bill. Second, if the House negatives Clause 43 of the Finance Bill as presented or an amendment to delete the said proposal is carried, the House would have resolved on the matter. This scenario will trigger the application of the provision of Standing Order 49, and the matter may only be reintroduced after 6 months in accordance with the same standing order. In the third scenario, the same fate as that in scenario 2 would arise in the event that this House passes the Finance Bill 2019 with Clause 43, but the President expresses reservation to the clause and the House fails to master the threshold required to override the President's reservations. As to what the second and third scenarios would portend to the likely lapse of the 12 months that the Court, through a ruling made on the 14th of March 2019, granted the National Assembly to rectify the anomalies that were in that law, the matter is outside the purview of the Speaker at the moment. In summary, therefore, this is my findings. 1, that clauses 50 and 51 of the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2019, failed to comply with the standard of disclosure set out in the Constitution, and more specifically, Article 24, Clause 2, and therefore are procedurally defective and are hereby excluded from second reading. The bill will proceed as if the two clauses were not part of it. 2, that this determination is only related to the procedural defects in the manner in which the proposed amendments have been presented. 3, that nothing stops the mover of the bill or any other member from proposing the amendments in an appropriate format in a separate bill for the consideration of the House. And 4, that with respect to Clause 43 of the Finance Bill 2019, which seeks to amend the Banking Act, the provision Standing Order 49 on revisiting a matter already decided on by the House does not arise at this stage, as the House has not made a determination on the matter one way or other. The House is accordingly guided. I thank you, members. Honorable John Bandi, what is the point of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I applaud your ruling and congratulate you for giving that long ruling, and I understand why, because, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure this is a matter that some people would have gone to court to challenge it, so you need to pronounce yourself in a manner that even judges would treat it as a ruling from an equivalent, a person of equivalent status as a judge. But, Mr. Speaker, now that we have taken care
of the interests of lawyers and their clients under clause 50 and 51. There is another profession of accountants, Mr. Speaker, which is also going to be adversely affected by provisions of clause 49. So, Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of equity and fairness and equal treatment to all professions, I would also urge that this provision in the bill on clause 49 that is offensive to accountants, and that is a matter that we dealt with not long ago. Mr. Speaker, I don't understand why the Treasury is behaving like this. And as accountants, we are really offended by this intrusion from the Treasury to attempt to legislate for us, and in the process, dealing with a matter that they don't understand. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm also urging that in the same spirit as we have dealt with the lawyers, and I could see lawyers were really cheering you, Mr. Speaker, although I know you are not making this ruling because you are also a lawyer. I know you are fair to all professions. Could you also be fair to the profession of accountants and have clause 49 be removed from debate so that when we go to the second reading, we don't consider clause 49 of the bill? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I hope we are not, we cannot debate the ruling. Honorable Musimba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you for your considered ruling on the issue. My concern is about the public participation. In light of a recent ruling which was given, that the considerations that we make during third reading, the Committee of the Whole House, having not been subjected to public participation. And in this case, more specifically, when we are dealing with this finance bill, you find that as it emanates from the executive, Mr. Speaker, that the executive arm of the government has already subjected the bill before being published to public participation during the budget making exercise, which informs to the amendments which they bring forth. But at the point that we've given the considerations during second reading, and more importantly, when we bring the proposals, it's now subject to challenge in court. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Speaker, to guide us in terms of when do we bring in public participation as regards bills so that they're not negatived by the courts as we move forward. Because then we'll never have an opportunity, because in accordance to our standing orders, we have till 24 hours prior to the Committee of the Whole House to bring amendments to your able office. As such, there's no opportunity for public participation. And I think this is an area which needs to be addressed. So I would want to stand guided by yourself as to how we proceed forward.
Honorable Musimba, you are suggesting something that is a bit strange, that before we proceed to Committee of the Whole House, or after Committee of the Whole House.
That's actually, in light to that ruling which was given in the courts, challenging that the issues we brought into the Committee of the Whole House, that they were not subject to public participation, and as such were not relevant into the material bill or act which was assented to. So that is actually the primary concern, Mr. Speaker, that should we be able to say that all members first bring, after we've had second reading, all our proposed amendments, then it's subjected now to public participation prior to us having the Committee of the Whole House, Mr. Speaker.
Fortunately, the Honorable Musimba, as I'm sure all members would know, the authority under Article 124 of the Constitution to make rules that guide the processes to be applied by any House of Parliament is exclusive to the House. So it cannot be that the courts are going to give us rules of how Parliament is going to function. I will be the last person to accept that kind of situation, because then we would have lost the relevance or even the need to exist if our procedures are to be developed by the courts. The courts also have developed their own rules on their own to guide their own operations. It cannot be, and that's why what Article 124 is there. And it gives the authority to the respective houses of parliament to make rules which guide our operations. As far as the issue of amendments proposed by members, within our own standing orders, that's why we always say, and earlier on, the little majority in reading what is the business before the House next week, did urge members, those who have who intend to make proposals to amend the various clauses and other provisions in the finance bill, to begin preparing. Those are always approved by the Speaker on the basis, one, constitutionality, if they comply with the Constitution. Two, they must be relevant to the bill which has gone through public participation. So that if the matter, a member introduces a matter which is alien to the bill or which would offend any provisions of the Constitution, then the Speaker has the power to reject any proposed amendment. Having followed that procedure, the rest, as long as they are relevant to what is there, and indeed, each departmental committee, after engaging with the stakeholders and the public in general, makes a report. And that report is supposed to reflect the views that the committee may have collected from the public and other stakeholders that may have appeared before the committee. Even if, on the other hand, for instance, the committee publishes and invites views of the public and other stakeholders, and nobody appears, the committee cannot keep keep the House without going forward. The committee will say that they will come and make a report that they advertised for people to come and give views. Nobody gave any views, or that the views that were that they found were of such a nature as to offend maybe parts of the Constitution and other existing legislations. I think to that extent, we cannot be bound by any decisions that the courts may wish to advance, and especially with regard to the procedures here, because we have the responsibility to develop our own internal processes and rules of procedure, just like the courts do. I think, honourable members, we can proceed. I see an intervention. Is that intervention, Honourable Wanga?
No, I want to contribute. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to contribute to the finance.
It has been already called out, but I wanted, honourable members, as you know, you can see there's some business appearing as order number 9, which is Committee of the Whole House. I wanted to yes, honourable members, I wanted honourable members, the business appearing in order number 9 is going to take less than 20 minutes. So as to be able to, and you see also it's fair for us to conclude particularly the bills. And I may wish to just guide that, sorry, honourable members, even on this, honourable members, it's just for the convenience of the House. It will take a very, very short time. I have looked at the reports of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee with regard to its consideration of the President's reservations to the Parliamentary Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2018, and more particularly, their proposed amendments to clause 43. And the amendments are, in my view, as contemplated in Standing Order 154, subsection 4, and Article 115 of the Constitution, in tandem with the intentions contained in the President's reservations, and therefore fully accommodate those reservations. So I suspect, honourable members, you may not take a very long time because this is a bill that you have already considered. So, honourable members, allow me to rearrange the order paper so that, honourable members, my only worry is, no, Oh, she's there, okay. Honourable members, no, not the numbers. I'm happy, I've seen somebody in rent. Yeah, because honourable members, I was looking for the person who was going to do the next business. It's because the Deputy Speaker had indicated to me that he's the one who was going to do it, and I was looking around, I couldn't see him. But the Honourable, the first chairperson of the Speaker's panel, the Honourable Soipan, is in the House. So, honourable members, we will move to order number 9, conclude it quickly, and go back to order number 8 for the convenience. Or leader of majority and yes, the leader, even in order number 9, the leader of majority had written to request that he needs further consultation with the ministry concerned. So, in order number 9, what appears as business in Roman 3 is taken out of the order paper. So you only do Romans 1 and 2. So you can call for next order.
Order number 9, Committee of the Whole House.
Order, members. We are now in Committee of the Whole House to consider the Presidential Memorandum on the Parliamentary Service Bill, National Assembly Bill number 6 of 2018.
President's recommendation to clause 20.
Leader of Majority. Order, Leader of Majority. Come back to the business.
Chair, Honorable Sophia wants to raise 2/3. And she thinks to get. And they think, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 2 of the bill be amended as provided in the order paper and in the memorandum from the President. And I assist the deletion does not in any way, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, takes away the powers of the Parliamentary Service Commission as spelled out in Article 127(6) of the Constitution. It's very, very clear. I beg to move.
I propose the question, which is that clause 20 be amended as recommended by His Excellency the President. There seems to be no interest to contribute. I go on to put the question, which is that clause 20 be amended as recommended by the President. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of our contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it. And I go on to put the final question, which is that clause 20, as amended, be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of our contrary opinion say no? The ayes have it.
His Excellency the President, recommendation to clause 43.
The Honorable Leader of Majority. Honorable Leader of Majority, you seem to be having a parallel Kamukunji.
We are discussing the BBI.
Or is it the
now
chairperson?
That Kumbuza is finished.
I can see the chairperson, Justice. Leader, are you the one moving?
No, Justice, I'll support him.
Madam Chair, because...
Honorable Leader of Majority, you know the Chair of Justice and Legal Affairs has an amendment. So you have to move the clause first and then we come to the amendment.
Okay, Chair. Yeah.
You're being distracted by this Kamukunji.
I am, you know, the last 24 hours, there are new developments in the political arena between Tanga, Kieleweke, and these ODM guys. So they are consulting. And the commander has defected from Jubilee to ODM.
But you're on record the other day, Honorable Leader of Majority, stating clearly that there is nothing as those terminologies you're pronouncing here.
I'm just saying.
So that is subject for a Kamukunji.
They are here.
Not for this committee.
You should disband them. They are here. There was ODM, a guy from Madara. There is a leader of Tanga. There was another Keleweke. Yeah. There's noise always when you use mics. Madam Chair, I beg to move that clause 43 be amended as proposed by the President in the order paper.
Honorable members, I propose a question that clause 43 be amended as recommended by His Excellency the President. I now call upon the Chair, Honorable Cheptumo, to move his proposed amendment to the clause.
Madam Chair, I propose that this section 43 or clause 43, Madam Speaker, be deleted in the bill. And Madam Chair, what the President has done is to provide explicitly that SRC be able to advise in the event that the Parliamentary Service Commission might wish to increase salaries or benefits for members of staff. Madam Chair, that is a clear provision of Article 234(4)(b) of the Constitution. Madam Chair, there is no need, therefore, for us to provide that in the bill, because already it is well clearly provided for in Article 234(b) of the Constitution. And that is the justification of us proposing that that should be deleted, because, Madam Speaker, it is not adding any value. That is why you are saying. And I think Majority Leader, Majority Leader, Madam Chair, is agreeing with me on this, where I had also consulted him, because that is really the position we have taken as a committee.
Honorable members, who
No. No, Madam Speaker, the Speaker has already agreed that this amounts to actually accommodate the President's proposal. And therefore, the issue of 200 arises by majority. That's the position. That is why actually he gave a position before he left.
That's in order, Honorable Chair. But I'll go on to propose the question, which is that clause 43 be amended as proposed by you, Honorable Cheptumo. And Honorable Leader of Majority.
Chair, I support the amendment to the chair because we are talking about the role of SRC, which the President raised. And the role of SRC is clearly set out in Article 234B of the Constitution. So there's no need of further reciting that in this bill because it's already in the Constitution. And this bill is for the Parliamentary Service Commission. So we don't need to bring SRC matters which are in the Constitution to transfer it to this bill. So I think I agree with the chair. The President raised it, and now we are deleting the whole of 43 so that it remains in the Constitution. I beg to support.
Honorable Luanga.
Yeah, Chair, without adding much, what I want to state is what SRC must note is in this case, for staff of Parliament, their role is advisory. So they should not move in to try and set salaries for staff of the Parliamentary Service Commission because there is a difference there. So I think it should be noted clearly that as far as the staff of Parliament is concerned, the role of the SRC is advisory. Setting and reviewing belongs to the Parliamentary Service Commission on advice of the SRC. But I know that SRC likes to overstep their mandate, and even on this one, they sometimes move in to try and set even benefits for the staff of the Parliamentary Service Commission. I think that should be noted even as we pass this one.
Honorable Omalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I rise to support Honorable Jeptumo's amendment. It's indeed in positive. It does not negate at all. And that's why we don't need a simple majority will work out. And we don't need to restate what is stated in the Constitution, in the statutes, Madam Chair. So I'm requesting other honorable members who are here, we support so that we don't do the repetition. And as my colleagues have clearly put it, the role of SRC is clear in the Constitution, and also the role of parliamentary